right, welcome everyone. This is, of course, DC Howard here with PeerForward, and I am super excited to welcome you to your FAFSA 101 webinar. This webinar is going to cover a lot of great topics as, of course, this year the FAFSA has been new and improved and is now entitled the Better FAFSA. And so what we want to be able to do is for you as peer leaders, as well as you as advisors and other individuals connected to our PeerForward network, is make sure you are prepared and able to be successful in navigating yourself as well as also your peers through the new FAFSA. The Better FAFSA will open in the month of December 2023, and it will serve as the financial aid application that is absolutely free from the U.S. Department of Education that will serve students that will be attending a post-secondary institution between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. Throughout this particular presentation, we'll make sure that there are purposeful stops and pauses in the information so that you're able to rewatch, re-listen, and be able to gather the information as well. Also, we'll ensure that there are certain time frames that will pause the information as we switch between different sections. Just as a quick reminder, make sure that you are not sharing your personal information outside of your own personal family between student and parent, because we want to make sure that your information is absolutely safe. And so we want to make sure that you are doing your very best to protect your identity. So what are we going to cover through this webinar? We're going to cover the Better FAFSA Fast Facts, much of which, if you attended our fall training camp, will be a great review. We're going to focus on the information that you'll need to gather in order to complete the FAFSA. We'll actually walk through a step-by-step, if you will, guide of how the FAFSA is completed. And then we'll also talk about next steps that you'll want to take to ensuring that you, as well as also your classmates, as well as your school and your school community, is prepared for the FAFSA. All right, so some quick facts. What does the FAFSA actually stand for? I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to see if you know what it actually stands for. Let's see. Most of you got it right. Good. Hopefully from fall training camp, you remembered it is, of course, the free application for federal student aid. Pronunciation is important, so it is known as the FAFSA because you're able to see it's the free application, F-A-F, for federal student aid. F-A-F-S-A. That's how you're able to remember it. Of course, this ensures that you're able to have federal money, you're able to have school money from your respective post-secondary institution, as well as also the FAFSA, depending upon your state or municipality, may actually garner the ability for you to get your state and or municipalities funds as well. So as I mentioned earlier, a lot of highlights from our respective fall training camp. The Better FAFSA is shorter, it is simpler, it is more inclusive, it provides more college options, and it is more realistic. Our former predecessor of the FAFSA was 108 questions. Now it is down to 36 questions. It's much simpler in the fact of the matter that the direct data exchange, which we'll go over a little bit more in this webinar, literally automatically populates your W-2 and or your tax information into the form that therefore simplifies a lot of the process there. It's more inclusive in the fact of the matter that students that may potentially be in independent scenarios and or may have had previous incarcerations with regards to misdemeanors now are in fact eligible for the FAFSA. It provides more college options. So now you're able to have double the colleges or post-secondary institutions that you can submit your FAFSA to. Before it was up to 10, now you can do up to 20. And then now it is more realistic. So understanding the financial perspective of many of our students and families, being able to understand that the FAFSA now can even further signify the financial potential stress that going to a post-secondary institution may be on your respective family, that literally before the lowest it could go was 0. Now it can literally go all the way down to negative 1,500. So the direct data exchange, there is now a partnership that the U.S. Department of Education now has between the Internal Revenue Service. So therefore, it makes it easier to be able to share that information. Now, as you'll see within the actual FAFSA itself, and we're going to see that in a few moments, is that you must provide consent in order to complete the FAFSA. You can opt out of this, but just because the FAFSA form, the Better FAFSA, actually now has a requirement for that, your actual form will be deemed incomplete and it will not be processed. So please make sure that you know that you ultimately must provide consent, both student as well as also parent, which is now known as contributor, which we'll talk about a little bit as well. And so we're going to reference here a few of the data items that the Direct Data Exchange will now provide in your FAFSA form. These are the particular things that it provides there, just to highlight some of the specifics. Of course, if you completed a IRS Form 1040 or 1040A or EZ, that you'll be able to see that all of the tax information that is provided in kind of the left-hand column is there. If you're an individual or a family that may receive other benefits such as child support, as well as also federal wages that are not taxed, that information will also be directly provided as well as if you are a business owner and you have filed your taxes, your Schedule C and your other items will be there as well. Once again, we just want to make sure that you know that if you're planning to enroll in a post-secondary institution after July 1st, 2024, this is the FAFSA that you're going to be completing. It will open in December. Our ideal belief is that you actually complete it before March 1st, all right? And once again, as we reference in our fall training camp, is that each year that you are not even just enrolled in college or a post-secondary institution, but planning to enroll in college and or a post-secondary institution, make sure that you are filing your FAFSA. All right. And so the other piece that you'll find with regards to the FAFSA is that there will be a student section, and then there will also be a parent or contributor section. And once those two sections are completed, it will therefore be submitted and it will say that it's been successfully processed. And then as it's been successfully processed, the U.S. Department of Education will provide you a student aid index. This is actually the replacement for what was known as EFC, Estimated Family Contribution. And that, of course, indicates the amount of ability that your family as a collective is able to pay for their respective college endeavors. And so you'll see various information that's provided for that in just a moment. So who is eligible for this particular form? The FAFSA, as it lists here, are U.S. citizens. Even if your parent is not a U.S. citizen, if you, the student, are a U.S. citizen, you are eligible. Any of our permanent residents, as well as also particular eligible non-citizens, as well as also T visa holders are those that are eligible. With regards to eligible non-citizens, that may be individuals that are here via DACA and or DREAM Act where applicable. Determining eligibility. And so with regards to this, just to be very transparent, is the fact of the matter that even if, once again, your parent may be undocumented, but you as a student are a U.S. citizen, you are in fact eligible for financial aid. Now, in the case where your particular parent, as well as yourself, also or a peer may be undocumented, you're not eligible for the FAFSA, but there are respective possibilities that are eligible based upon your state and or municipality. Here, looking at this next slide, many of our students and families that are undocumented, if you live in any of these particular states and or municipalities, you are eligible for, if you will, state and or municipal tuition that's available to you as an undocumented student. And as you can see, a lot of our areas that are within our PeerForward network are, in fact, those areas that provide support, especially to our undocumented populations. Now let's get into information gathering. So what's the first thing that you're going to need? You're going to need an FSA ID. You're going to need an FSA ID because that is the literal signature as well as also login for this year's Better FAFSA. Whereas before the FSA ID was only needed at the end of the FAFSA process, now the FSA ID is literally needed in order to log in as well as also complete the FAFSA. And so make sure that you and your parent and or guardian has their FSA ID that you can literally get right now. Go to the website studentaid.ed.gov that will allow you to be able to create your specific FSA ID username and password. What are the items that you need to complete the FAFSA? The items that are in bold are the things that you'll need to provide. The items that are not in bold are things that will already be provided via the direct data exchange. And so once again, making sure that both you as the student as well as your parent and or other contributors have an FSA ID, that you have records of your untaxed income, that you have records of your current balances of any checking and or savings accounts, and then any particular net worth of your current investments you want to have. I've been referencing this keyword contributor. So with the Better FAFSA, this is a new particular item that has been brought out, is the fact of the matter that contributors will actually be the individuals that will assist in the form. And what will happen is that students will fill out their section of the FAFSA, and literally it will be completed for their portion. They will then have an email address where they send an official invite to a contributor that will provide the remaining information, which will be a parent and or guardian. And so here on this particular slide, it highlights the various individuals that will be considered a contributor. So this will be, once again, a biological parent and or the parent spouse, in case the parent may have remarried, with regards to the parent that the actual student is living with. And note who the contributor is not, which is something that is very key. And so I won't go into detail of those, but I'll give just a brief pause for you to be able to kind of just read through those particular items. Now, with regards to contributors, we just want to make sure, as I've referenced, contributors will ultimately be invited by the student in order to input their information, and that, of course, the contributors will need to have their date of birth, their social security number, email address, as well as the other particular information that I've referenced with regards to untaxed income, as well as the account balances of checking and savings accounts, as well as net worth of investments. This particular slide just outlines the process of what will happen for a contributor. So they're going to receive an email that they've been identified as a contributor, of course, via your student. They're going to, of course, create their FSA ID if they've not already done so. Once they have their FSA ID, you're going to then use that same login, username and password to actually enter into the FAFSA. You'll then enter your information as a contributor, which we'll see in just a moment, and then you'll sign the form, which will therefore complete the FAFSA. Awesome. Welcome back. Of course, this is Coach DC here with PeerForward. And so hopefully you've been able to get the fast facts for the FAFSA, which was sections 1 and 2 of this webinar. And so now you are here at section 3 of completing the actual FAFSA. In this particular section, we're going to walk you through what you will need to do both as a student, as well as also what your contributor will need to do in order to complete the FAFSA. Here is the first thing that you're going to make sure you have, and it should sound very familiar. You need to have your FSA ID. And so literally you can do this right now, even before December 2023, that you can go to the website that's referenced here. We'll make sure that we provide this in an extra note section, but you're going to go to studentaid.gov to create your FSA ID. You're going to make sure that you provide an email address that you have quick access to. Ideally, we usually suggest that it be a Gmail account that you have quick access to, that you're able to have all of this information there. You're going to input your social security number, birth date, and the other items that are provided. There is a possibility for parents that do not have a social security number that there may be an opportunity for the FSA ID once the Better FAFSA opens, that you're able to create your own FSA ID without a social security number. However, as of right now of this recording, which is in early November 2023, there is a requirement for a social security number. So I would say be on the lookout for any parents that do not have a social security number from December 2023 after, as there may be the possibility for you to create an FSA ID without a social security number. And so being able to log into the FAFSA, this is what the FAFSA form is going to look like here. where you're going to log in using your FSA ID username and password here on the left-hand side. And then what you're going to do is on the right-hand side, this is what the screen will look like. As you'll go to studentaid.gov, you'll go to the FAFSA form, complete the FAFSA form, and then you'll make sure that you are using the 2024-2025 Start New Form. 2024-2025 Start New Form. Because if you do the 2023-2024 form, that's going to be for literally this calendar year. And once again, our focus is on all students that are going into the FAFSA for the 2024-2025 school year for college and or post-secondary institution. Now, here's one of the cool things that I will say about the new Better FAFSA is that it is very user-friendly. And so what you're going to see is that as you interact with the actual Better FAFSA form is that there are a lot of tutorials, as well as also there are a lot of infographics that help you understand what to expect prior to completing a section. That should help you, as well as also your parent or contributor, be able to have a lot of information with regards to the FAFSA. Now, let's look at what you're going to see in the student section. So the first thing you're going to see is your student demographics. And so a lot of this information will be pre-populated since you already have your FSA ID. And so you'll see on the left a lot of information you're just going to verify. You're going to make sure that your permanent mailing address is indeed the same, as well as also you're going to reference your state of legal residence. Of course, you're going to reference your state or municipality, and then you're going to reference the earliest month and year that you've been in that municipality and or state. Then we're going to get into the direct data exchange. And so literally on the left-hand side here, this is a screenshot of what it will look like, where it will literally ask you and reference that this is what you will be using in order to provide consent for our direct data exchange to pull federal tax information. Now remember, we're looking currently at the student section. So we're looking at the student section. So if you are a student that you've worked a job or you're currently working a job, there may be W-2 information that's pulled. But if you're an individual that you've not had any form of tax items, therefore there may not be much of any information that is pulled. But nevertheless, you want to make sure that you have these particular items available just in case. Also, another point to reference that it was stated in the PowerPoint is that if you do not give consent for your respective financial tax or your federal tax information in that moment, there will be other places in the actual form that you can provide that consent. All right. So personal circumstances here. You'll be inquired a list of questions that will allow you to be determined whether or not you are or are not an independent student. An independent student means that you are not relying financially on your parent and or contributor for your respective well-being. Therefore, you are ultimately responsible for all of your financial endeavors. And so if you are a student that either is currently homeless or at risk of being homeless and you are on your own, this is something that you will want to make sure that you're answering these questions honestly and transparently. With regards to students that may be at risk of being homeless and or you may be homeless, but you are still with your family, you would still be considered a dependent student, in which you'll see that in the actual form. For student finances, because as I've referenced, most of the information will be actually pre-populated by the direct data exchange, you'll just make sure that you're able to enter the 3 bullet points that are here. If you are a student, which most of you that are under the age of 18 would not necessarily directly receive child support, that would be your parent and or contributor. But nevertheless, if you were in that case, that any child support that you're receiving, the total amount currently in your bank account, and the value of any investments and or real estate. Those are the other items that will be listed in the student finances section. You'll then have the opportunity to, as I referenced earlier, select up to 20 colleges or post-secondary institutions you can be able to include in the FAFSA. And so I would definitely recommend to literally fill and populate as many colleges and or post-secondary institutions that you are going to apply to, that you make sure that you have that in there. And then I would also, just as a passing point, even though you may have not applied to an in-state or an in-city school, definitely add one of those schools in there, just because this will ensure that you're also selected for state level or municipal level based aid. So for instance, the state of California or the state of Maryland, you'll be in the running for Maryland or California state aid. And for those that live in the District of Columbia, you'll be therefore eligible for D.C. based aid. You'll then have the opportunity to review your particular items. It may be a little bit smaller here, but you'll see that there are green check marks in all of these particulars. There's one particular area that doesn't have a check mark. And so if it is gray, you're going to want to go back to that section to make sure that it's ungrayed. But then once you've had everything together, you're going to click continue so that you can actually sign the form. And then once again, because you have already logged in with your FSA ID, it will just reference that you agreed to all of the information and that all of the information that you've submitted from your knowledge is in fact correct. You then, of course, click on the little checkbox there, and then you would click sign and submit. And as a student, you would have officially completed your portion of the FAFSA form. Now let's take an opportunity to look at what our contributors, our parents, are going to actually fill in for their portion of the FAFSA. Once again, as we referenced, the FAFSA, being now called the Better FAFSA, is now split into two sections where literally the parent will only see the parent portion or the contributor portion, and the student will only see the student portion of the actual FAFSA. So let's take a look at what you, the contributor, will look at. With regards to our parent information, we want to make sure that we are including the actual email. So you're going to see that as a parent, you're going to get this particular FAFSA email that will be sent by your student. And so you want to make sure that you already have your FSA ID in order to officially accept this invitation for them to complete your actual credentials. From there, a lot like the student section, is that you're going to verify your demographics as a contributor. A lot of it will be pre-populated, so you're just going to verify your mailing address. From there, this is the big difference for our contributors this year. This year, a lot of your federal tax information will actually be directly exchanged through what's called the direct data exchange with the IRS, as well as also the U.S. Department of Education. And so you are to provide consent within the FAFSA form of being able to get that federal tax information. Please keep in mind, if you do not give consent, as of what we know right now, we are not necessarily aware that there will be a manual submission of that tax information. And so you must select you give consent so that that information can be available. However, in the event that they will allow for manual submission of this information, do make sure that you have your W-2 and or tax information ready. Because once again, the direct data exchange will pre-populate most of the financial information, this is the information that's listed here that you'll want to make sure that you have available after all of the tax information has been provided. And so you'll want to make sure that any IRAs, pension rollovers, that any of your scholarships that are reported as income, if by chance as a contributor you are in fact the student, child support that you've received, as well as also the total amount that you may have in your bank accounts, as well as also value of investments and or real estate that is not your primary residence. So not including the home that you may be paying a mortgage on and or that you're currently dwelling in. So make sure that you have all of those particular financial items there. From there, you're going to review your particular section as we reference the personal identifiers, demographics, and the financials. You want to make sure that all of those areas are green. And as you can see here in this particular demo piece, that all of those areas are green. The final item that you want to make sure that you're able to do is be able to click continue so that you're able to submit your signature, which all that is just being able to have a summary that you are saying that all of the items that you have submitted are true and to the best of your knowledge, and that you would click that button there and then click sign and submit, and you would officially have completed the actual FAFSA form. And then what that will look like is you'll get a completion page that looks like this. In fact, this is actually the completion page, of the parent. It gives your student's name there. It gives the date that it's been completed. You'll see the what happens next. and then you can be able to track the status as you log into your particular area of the studentaid.gov website. And then as the student, you'll get this information where it will show the estimated amount of student aid index, which is that number we referenced earlier, your data reference number, and when it was completed. Here are the things we want to make sure that you're mindful of, that these things don't happen to you. Make sure that these things don't happen to you. So of course, students, make sure that you're not requesting just your legal guardian as your contributor. It should be your actual parent that you are living with regards to your actual FAFSA. Making sure that you're incorrectly reporting the number of people in your household, that you're not reporting, or rather that you're reporting certain earnings that are actually not required for the FAFSA, such as unemployment earnings or untaxed benefits that are not required. Making sure that you're not reporting the value of the home, because once again, the value of the home that you're currently living in is not included with regards to the real estate for the FAFSA. Also, that you're not including incorrect tax information, which of course should be directly handled through the direct data exchange, but nevertheless, that you're trying to put 2021 or 2023 info in case that, for instance, it is allowed for manual submission, and then making sure that you do hit that sign and submit, both parent and student. Make sure that you're doing that for your FAFSA. And so you want to make sure that you are being your own advocate. And so don't be afraid to reach out to your financial aid office at your respective college or post-secondary institution to be able to advocate for more aid. Even if they've already received your FAFSA and they provided you an award letter, this is your particular journey. So you absolutely can be your own advocate to be able to get more funding for your actual post-secondary journey. We're now going to take a 30-second break, as we're going to allow you to be able to pause, and then we're going to go into next steps of things that you want to be able to do with regards to preparing for the FAFSA as a peer leader team and as an overall unit. All right, welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You are now at section 4 of our FAFSA webinar. Once again, if you have not already done so, feel free to look at our first 3 sections where in section 1, we went over FAFSA fast facts. In the second section, we went over information that you need to gather in preparation for the FAFSA. And then in the most previous section, we literally went through step by step what completing the FAFSA looks like on the student side, as well as also on the contributor side. You're now at section 4, where we're going to talk about next steps of what you want to do as a peer leader team to be able to prepare your peers, yourself, as well as your school community for being able to get individuals to complete the FAFSA. As we referenced in section 3 at the very end, you are your best advocate. And so make sure that you are finding the people and the resources you need in order to be successful. Your advisor, your PeerForward coach, your counselor, known as guidance counselor, professional school counselor, but your counselor in your respective school are great resources for this particular assistance. Being able to go to YouTube is a great assistance for the actual U.S. Department of Education FAFSA walkthrough videos. You want to make sure that you're looking at the 2024-2025 walkthrough videos, which a few of those have come out as we're recording this in November 2023, but more should be on the way as the Better FAFSA opens. There's also an FSA chatbot that is called Aiden. So you can be able to go visit Aiden, and we have the website there, as well as also our PeerForward Toolkit, which you should have heard a lot about this from your PeerForward coach, as well as also during your fall training camp, that you can be able to access using the website as well as the password there to get great information. You can also go to linkforward.org, which is a great resource that has a lot of various other post-secondary access, not-for-profits, as well as resources to help you be able to get great financial aid information. So how do you ensure that you bring a FAFSA event to your school? You're going to find your allies. So once again, your PeerForward coach, your PeerForward advisor, your counselor, your particular other post-secondary entities that may be in your school, Community in Schools, Gear Up, College Bound, other post-secondary institutions that are in your area. Make sure you team up to be able to have that support. Set a date. So I know a lot of you already in your PeerForward teams are preparing your dates for whether it be your FSA ID nights, your FAFSA informational nights, or literally your FAFSA nights. Go ahead and set those dates now so individuals can already have that in their heads that they're going to be going to this particular event. Make sure that you define the agenda. What specifically will you as the PeerForward team do? What will other individuals that are available and have more knowledge about the FAFSA process do? What will others need to do? Make sure you reserve a space. So ideally, this is going to be your library, your information resource center, your computer lab, whatever the case may be, where there's space for individuals to get online, where there is quality internet and or Wi-Fi service, as well as also that there is space. Because a lot of times for these events, it's not just the student, but it is in fact the student, the parent or parents, possibly a younger sibling, they'll be there as well. And as we reference, make sure that you invite peers and families, because once again, while it is you, the student, it takes a village in order for this respective process to be successful. And so you want to make sure that any and everyone that's a part of your village is there to help support you. Once again, remember to check for that state aid or that municipality aid, because we don't want you to leave any free money on the table. And so especially in our areas of Maryland, Florida, New York, D.C., as well as Texas, all of those particular areas have a specific state aid application. And this is not to say your state or municipality may not have a particular application. Make sure you are completing those state aid or municipal aid applications, as that is a great way for you to get even more aid for your post-secondary journey, and especially for our students that may be undocumented. This is how we ensure that you get the maximum amount of financial aid as well. Well, I just want to say thank you so very much for your time here on today with me as Coach DC here with PeerForward. You can reach out to us at any of these particular handles of our social media. We also, of course, have access to any of your PeerForward coaches, which you should have their emails. And last but not least, for our peer leaders, we want to make sure that you complete this particular survey. And so I'm going to, once I finish referencing this, as we want to be able to highlight you and be able to give you even a greater professional development certificate as being able to be a part of not only absorbing, but actually retaining the information from these webinars. Go ahead and take a moment, go ahead and copy this link, go ahead and take the survey. And it's a very quick quiz just to make sure that you've actually taken in all the information that we provided here on today. I'll give about another 15 seconds and then we'll officially close out. All right. Well, I simply want to say thank you so very much for being able to be a part of this particular webinar and being able to actually take the opportunity to focus on the FAFSA. The FAFSA, literally, I remember, and I've actually been a graduate student here over the past couple years, as you may be able to see. Yep, that little, or not little, but maybe possibly kind of big particular degree there is that I too, even as a graduate student, had to complete the FAFSA each and every single year in order to make sure that I had the aid I needed to complete my post-secondary journey. And of course, I did it as an undergrad as well. And what I will say to you as a student, you have what it takes to actually complete the FAFSA, as well as also your respective family members have what it takes to complete the FAFSA. And this is just yet another step to your glorious post-secondary journey. Once again, I'm Coach DC, and on behalf of PeerForward, thank you so very much for attending this webinar, and we look forward to seeing and speaking with you soon.